get it.
Well, I've got another quarter.
I'd say that was the direction to look to start with.
I was born in the main medical center because my mother, that's where she born and brought up in Portland, so that was a natural place to go. And I was born in the 30th of August in 1936. My father, of course, was from here, and mother would come just soon she had me, would come right back. And they started with that house down on the point. Eddie started the house, Eddie Brackett, and had it framed up and stuff. And my father, he had it 2/3 done, and my father bought it from him, and that's where I was brought up mostly. But I lived right here quite a bit. Not lived here, but was up here quite a bit because my grandmother and grandfather lived here. And I thought the world of my grandfather. He was a good-natured, awful good-natured fellow. Walter Brackett, Walter J. Brackett was my grandfather. Verena, she was a McLean, and of course she changed her name. She was Verena Brackett. Yeah, and Pug was her father, Pug McLean. Alexander Churchill McLean was her father. Pug was my great-grandfather.
Okay.
Well, there was nicknames, and Normie and I started writing them down one day before Normie passed away, and we had 80-odd nicknames of people around town. Just
Really?
yeah, everybody used the name. Like my father's name was Linwood, but nobody ever knew him by Linwood. When he went to high school, somebody named him Buff, and they'd write his checks out Buff and everything. Nobody ever knew him any different but Buff Brackett.
Wow.
Paul and I kind of grew up down to the hotel together in the summertime. Paul Chase, because Teet was my grandma. My father and Teet were brother and sister. Teet Brackett.
Okay.
And she married Leverett Chase. Leverett was Paul's father. My father used to run from the train station and bring the people down to the hotel with the suitcases and trunks and all that years ago, because when people come years ago, they stayed for the summer. They didn't just come for overnight. They stayed there because there wasn't any transportation really. And T was in there because my grandmother down to the Hotel Pamquid, she had 3 meals a day. My mother worked there as a waitress, and my father drove the car, and T worked there. She was head run for the kitchen. My grandmother employed a lot of people in the summertime. During World War II, in our ages, what I can remember mostly about it was the Navy come and took the hotel away from my grandmother and moved in there. And of course, I don't know what kind of a deal arrangements was made or anything, but butter was scarce and meat was scarce, but they managed to get enough to us so that we usually had what we wanted, enough. And they had, I don't know if you can remember this, but they had watchtowers down on the end of the point that was watched 24 hours around the clock, people up in them. And if you heard a plane, you was to shut your lights out in the house or pull your shades down. And at that time, during World War II, you had if you had a vehicle, you had half of your headlights on top was painted black, so they didn't show up. They just showed ahead what they was. And that's about all I can remember. And then, of course, to alarm people if something did really happen, my grandfather had a trumpet. He'd blow it, and different ones in different sections of town would have horns that they'd blow so let you know that there was a disaster or something going on. No,
It was all kind of.
why I get into well drilling was Lynn Hanno was in the well drilling around here, and Lynn got drowned in a fishing accident, and I could see an opening, and I ordered the. Of course, I was fishing before then. Cale and I owned the Terra Vicky, and he come over one day, and we had an old pounder. And we used that pounder for 3 years and drilled around here. And then he come over one day and he says, "I'll buy your out." And I says, "What would you like?" And he says, "I'll take the boat." And I says, "I'll take the driller then." So I traded that driller for a new T4 back in 1972. And that's when I started drilling. I hired, my brother was getting a job for me, and we drilled quite a few wells. Your house is really no good if you don't have water in it, so we had that kind of figured out.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, my father was fireman, he really was one of the founding fathers that started it. One of the head ones that started it was Bob Search and Bob Pendleton, which was Ronnie's father, and there was quite a few around town, but Bob Search was really the kicker behind it. And the one thing that started it was the fire we had down by Leonard O's that 3 people burned up, and South Bristol come over, and of course by the time I got there, the only thing I saved was foundation. And the Fillmore, there was called the Fillmore family. Frank Fillmore and his wife and the boy started the fire with, he was one of these smart guys, and they heard him take a wheelbarrow and go down to Bob Search's down the Gosling. He wheeled a tank of gas back, and I got a story about it. I'll let you read after we get through. I joined that when I was 14 years old, and I joined it because I thought that it was right to. The only reason you went to fire somebody who was in trouble, and at my age then I could see that if you could help somebody when they was in trouble, that was the thing to do. Then it was perfectly all right at 14, but as time progressed, they wanted you to be a little older at 16 or 18. But 14 was fine then, and I knew how to drive, and they let me drive the truck and the whole deal at 14.
I see in 48, this is 48, 49, there was forest fires all around here.
Yeah, it was a dry year, and the one that really started, there was people picking raspberries over behind what I would call, you probably wouldn't know, but where, do you remember where Arlene lived? Arlene's right now. Yeah. Diagonally across from that White House. Okay. The fire was down in behind that house, and it burned quite a big area there. We went over once and had it almost knocked down, and the tide left us and it come back on us some, and then we finished it off, and it must have been underground or something, and the next time it started it really was going, and South Bristol come over and helped us, and they put a 6-cylinder Chrysler pump salt water down on John Partridge's wharf and run the hose up down on the trail and pump water down there for us for a good many days.
It's a long ways to pump, isn't it?
They did it. That was a big pump. It was a Chrysler engine, you know. Then the other one was down by Pumpkin Cove. Okay. And that was right about where Pumpkin Cove Road goes in there now and burned through the woods. And of Collis Fern had a boat anchored off of Pumpkin Cove, and they had 3 portable pumps on the end of his. I mean, he had an open boat with a big stern on it and wide, and there was 3 portable pumps on it. And they had a door there, and I'd go down and take gas and roll off to him and take the gas, keep them pumps going. He pumped into the. So we used a lot of salt water then, which they don't like to use today because the salt eats at the copper, the brass, you know, in the pumps. And so they haul water with these tankers and stuff and put dump tanks out and stuff on this way of doing it today. We had a pumper, and that one at Pumpkin Cove on telling about, there was a guy named Ferrara that bought mackerel, and he had trailer trucks with mackerel barrels in it, and they'd go down to the ice pond, fill them full of fresh water, and Wilbur Ladd would roll in barrels the length of that trailer truck and dump from one barrel to another barrel, and he did it for a good many days. I'm going to say 2-3 days, 2 days and a half or more. And they pumped all that barrel, pumping in on the fire. Yeah. I'll tell you one that really kind of stands out, that, and it wasn't my doing really, but they saved, right across from Clayton Felder's, there's that big barn up there. I can't think of the woman's name, but anyway, the barn caught a fire. And of course, the truck we had then only had a 1,000-gallon tank on it, and we went out, and that's when Bobby Fawcett was alive, and we put the deck gun on it, and of course that only lasted probably 4 or 5 minutes, and that was gone. And I said, Bobby, when I go by that telephone pole, wrap that hose around it, and I'll head for the pond, to the stream down there back of Pool Brothers. And I got down there, and just as I went by the windows there in Pool Brothers, we run out of hose, and I kept right on going, and Brian McLean come along, and he had on a long pair of rubber boots, which was great. And he'd never helped with a fire company before, but I said, Brian, we got to get this hose in the water down there, not behind a rock, but out in nice clear water so we can pump on it. So while we were doing that, Gil come from Round Pond and Pat from our truck to where the hose left off. And when we got it all hooked together, of course we didn't have the radios or things we do today to know if there's somebody up there, but I says, Brian, we're going to give them some water. So we put the water right to them, and they saved the home. And the big garage was a matter of feet from the home, and I'm telling her it worked out very well. Each truck today has around 1,200 feet of, then it was 2.5-inch hose, and now it's 4-inch hose. And each of the trucks, they try to keep around 1,000 to 1,200 feet on each truck. Most of the pumps that are on these trucks now, the one that we got on the tanker over here will pump 1,250 gallons a minute, and the new pumpers, the one in Round Pond, one over at Bristol Mills, will pump around 1,500 gallons a minute. You figure that out, 1,500 gallons a minute at roughly 8 pounds a gallon, and you could flatten a house with water just as well as burn it down. My theory was, if there wasn't anybody inside of a building, why surround and drown, and then that was how it worked then, and then they got these air packs so they could go inside, and they did that to try to go inside, and that's when they began to lose some firefighters, and they're back to the surround and drowned again unless there's somebody in there that you're trying to save.
Part to it, you know.
Well, the hardest part was at the end of the fire was cleaning up what you'd laid out for hose and cleaning it up and getting it back on the truck. That would be the hardest part. But I mean, when you're that age, there was no hard to it. You just did it. Oh, the camaraderie with the crew that you work with. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet it was kind of a brotherhood.
Brotherhood of them, yes. Well, if you was young and wanted to join the fire department today, well, they have classes that you take, like Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2, and you gradually work up, and you work under somebody for a while, you know, and then keep climbing the ladder until you get where you want to be. Every call we went on, and of course the whistle was on top of the building over to the other side of the church. That's where the firehouse was. And it was a 5 horsepower siren. And of course we slept as well upstairs there. When they touched that baby off, it was just about the right height as our bedroom. You didn't have, nobody had to wake you up. It lifted you right out of bed. I'll tell you, well, of course, they used to call for Ken, and then his wife would call around, get everybody. That's what we had on the staff. And then when you went to firehouse, you wrote it on the blackboard. There's blackboard outside there. You wrote where you was going, and the time and everything, and give it to her. And then somebody blows the siren. There's a thing on the wall, and then did you see it? Someone come in and so. This is the call. This is the calls we had right here. I know they're going to show up very good. 45.
Wow. Let me get right there, Jack.
Sure.
Maybe that's not less of a glare.
That isn't on, I hope.
Oh, he's taking
Isn't this is one of the original pictures here, isn't it, John?
Caught it.
Bracket. And say that looks like the truck down there you've been driving around.
These are sharper here.
Oh, they are
These
sharp.
are sharper here for you, kid.
Yeah, they are sharp.
I love that.
Go ahead, move it. We'll do whatever you want to do there. This is all of this was Cody. He was the fire chief first, and then Ken, and then Ronnie, and now Paul.
Right there.
Only been 4 fire chiefs?
Yeah.
Really?
So
Incredible.
these are more pictures, and there's a picture of the truck actually pumping.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I'll come back with my other camera, I guess.
Just if you want to get it all. Over here, picking up hoses.
Hi, how you doing? Good. Looks like fun.
Bring your partner. Introduce yourself.